Welcome to Break Free. Today we have Amanda Todorovich here from Cleveland Clinic.
Yes,
How are you?
Me.
Absolutely, I'm happy to have you.
Great.
Well, recently on your Twitter channel, you retweeted that Cleveland Clinic has monetized its blog successfully.
We actually started monetizing the site in 2015. We started really small, experimental. At that point, we were getting about 3 million visits a month. And we started with a Google pilot. Like, let's just slap up some Google ads and see what we get. If we get any kind of negative reaction internally or we see a drop in traffic, which we didn't, basically we got no reaction because people are so used to seeing ads, I think, that they just accepted it. So that was fine, but it's a lot of work. And as a nonprofit, there were a lot of rules around what we could and couldn't have advertising on our site. And managing that was a lot of work and for not a very high payoff. We knew that we could do it. We knew that it wouldn't affect really our traffic much, but we knew that we needed to think about it a little differently. So we partnered with another publisher, Very Well, and they sell and manage all of our inventory. And we launched that partnership in 2016. And since then, we've tripled our ad revenue. And we definitely have evolved and expanded our monetization efforts outside of just our Health Essentials blog into our Consult PD Physician blog, as well as our Health Library content. So it's revenue that comes directly back into our marketing division and supports a lot of the work that we're doing now.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So can you go into a little bit more details? Like, what do the ads look like?
So they're just traditional display ads. There's nothing really crazy about it. And they really have no impact on our overall content strategy. Nothing that we do from an editorial side is affected by it because it is such a separate thing. It's a separate company managing it for us. And we really just incorporated it into our overall site design. It feels much more like a media site. It gives us actually some credibility in that sense because it does provide that media-like experience versus a traditional corporate blog feel.
Mm-hmm. And are you looking for advertisers within a certain space or?
So it's not that we look for them within a certain space, but we definitely exclude a lot of spaces. Okay. So there's no, alcohol or drugs or like supplements kind of stuff. We only allow FDA approved pharmaceuticals. We don't allow any kind of guns or political ads. It's the blog and the website is really brand first. This revenue piece is a little bit of gravy. So we really want to protect and make sure that anything we're doing doesn't negatively impact anything related to the brand or to the experience.
Okay, so it's gravy. It's not a line item. You're not a revenue center for.
Over time, it's changed a little bit in terms of how it's budgeted. The revenue is accounted for in our budgeting process now, but it's not something that we are expected to break even or be profitable or offset the entire cost of marketing or anything like that. It's just much more subsidizing what we're doing. It's actually saved us from some budget cuts and things that we could have had to deal with in different ways. So, it's definitely been a huge benefit. And it's become increasingly important as it's increased as well. The ability for us to factor that in and to plan for it a little more now definitely is more beneficial.
Exactly. And does that mean then you need to output more content or?
No, we don't do any more content than we did when we launched the site in 2012. It's about 3 articles a day on Health Essentials. We do about 3 articles a day on Consult QD. And the Health Library is the Health Library. It's diseases and conditions and treatments. So we don't do more content to drive more revenue. What is actually more important to us is that we're optimizing the content we have and driving more people to the content that we're creating. And so a lot of our work is really focused around SEO and optimizing the content we're creating. Most of our content's fairly evergreen. So that investment is really important. And it's honestly probably a 50-50 split between creating new content and optimizing existing content.
Okay, great. In terms of SEO, where's your focus in terms of, gosh, these are really our big concepts, and then we've got the also-rans.
In 2013, 60% of our traffic came from social media, particularly Facebook. Today, that is not the case at all. It is literally 80 to 90% coming from organic search. So our SEO strategy today is extremely data-driven. The way that we prioritize the work and the way that we look at what we're going to focus our time and effort on is really around a couple of things. Competitive analysis and content gaps that we have, as well as the difficulty for ranking, and where do we have an opportunity with existing content to potentially climb the ladder a little easier with some tweaking. And it's also now a little bit more around assembling a comprehensive integrated team, not just from an editorial writing perspective, but from a multimedia perspective. What animation, illustration, video, imagery can we bring to that page to make it the best experience on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we work with a lot of clients, that are a little bit more enterprise side, and it's unfortunate because the content oftentimes can't even be thinking about the SEO side of the house. And you've just shared what the power that can happen. We all know that. How did you move through that journey and kind of combine those discipline?
We've built out a group that we are calling our content growth team. I created a position that's a director of content growth. He's primarily an SEO expert. But within his group is also social media, email, video, voice, and podcasts. And it's really focusing on discoverability and how do we get more people to engage with the content we're producing.
Exactly. Okay, what are you finding with, as the studies show, reading is on the decline, video and audio consumption is on the incline? How are you reacting to that?
Sure. So we have definitely expanded into multiple channels over the last couple of years that address that very specific trend. With voice in particular, we launched an Alexa skill. We've added a Google Assistant action. We've have, I think, now 6 different podcast shows that we're doing. We've still tried to increase video content and think through that experience a little differently. While yes, video content and consumption is rising, most of the time it's without audio. So you kind of have to have this like really awkward balance of content strategy there. But for us, one of our goals is really to make sure that we're providing the answers and information our audience is looking for anywhere in any way they're looking for it.
Do you have content pillars, or how do you kind of set up your content strategy, if you will?
So our content strategy is much more around engaging users in their daily health and helping them take care of themselves and make decisions around, how to keep their family healthy as well. A lot of times our particular audience is those people who are not just worrying about their own health, but their child, their aging parents. They have a lot of health concerns and questions. And so our strategy is much more around what do we know they're looking for? Because this is not the kind of content that you really want to be looking for, right? So, and even the health and wellness and prevention types of things that we do is still, again, not things people love to be talking about, right? Weight management and exercise, and we have to do those things, but they're not exactly the stuff people like want all the time, and nobody wants to need a hospital. So our strategy is a lot around how do we help you stay healthy? How do we show you that we care about you even when you're not sick? And that helps us stay relevant in daily feeds and keep our content fresh. We mix in clinical and it's important, but we don't do a lot of like cancer content, for example, because it's very heavy and it's not something, again, you want to be reminded of constantly, even if you have it. So while we have a ton of content on our website that will give you everything you need to know about it, it's mostly evergreen and it's there and it's more the library kinds of content. So we try to find this balance where it's really serving the broadest, greatest good that we can. And again, helping people make those choices every day, because literally from the time you wake up till the time you go to sleep, you're making choices that affect your health in so many ways. And so how we prioritize that kind of work and how we think about those topics is really data driven. It's what we know people are going to Google for, because honestly, one in every, I think it's 5 searches on Google is health related. It's a lot and it's growing every day. And then when you factor in voice search, it's a whole different thing. The way people are asking those kinds of questions and expecting those kinds of answers. That's something we're working on now very aggressively, is how do we make sure that we provide those snippets they work with voice if they're read out loud. What does our brand sound like? That's really an important question. Most of our health information content is long form. You're not going to want Alexa to read you 700 words. There's a lot of change in how we think about delivery, but the prioritization of topics and the way that we think about what to write, when to write, is really utilizing any data we can get our fingers on. Social, email, search. What are people doing? What are they looking for? What's trending in the news that's affecting people's mental health? If it's a more depressing type of day, then our social schedule is going to be a little lighter. Like, how do we just take into account emotion and empathy?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Great. Good lead into empathy. Really interested in where you all are going with that, kind of driver.
Yeah, well, at Cleveland Clinic, empathy is one of our core values. It's critical to what we do, and our biggest mission is to put patients first. And I think that in marketing, that's a very critical thing to think about. Being respectful of your audience's time, being empathetic when you're sending an email, mindful of what they're going through or what they're thinking about, or how many times you're trying to hit them with a message. In healthcare, there's so much sensitivity to it, but I think in any industry, you benefit from really thinking about how your audience members are feeling about that particular question or decision. And when you work that into your overall strategy and how you write or produce or create that content, it definitely is more successful when it really speaks to them, when it really connects with them, and when you're definitely conveying that you understand them.
Absolutely. That 4-minute video, that empathy video, I could barely make it into a minute without shedding a tear, but I watched the full 4 minutes and there was no audio. It helped with the music. And I thought it was really interesting because it was empathy, of course, for every single patient who comes into your environment. Everybody's thinking something different. And it isn't all medical, right? Somebody's maybe going through a divorce or having a child or thinking about cancer, but also internally. I thought it said a lot to your internal team because they're dealing with this many people every day and have to be empathetic. I just thought it was brilliant.
That video was originally created to teach empathy internally. It was not created for an external audience ever. But when we saw the video and we knew how powerful it really was, we made the decision to share it externally. It really went viral and blew up. It's probably one of the most powerful pieces of content ever put out by the Cleveland Clinic. And it actually shifted a lot of the way that we thought about content from that moment forward, because that was put out on our social media channels early. I want to say 2013 or 2014. And it was right at the time when we were really shifting the way we were thinking about content marketing. I was fairly new to the Cleveland Clinic at that time. And it really resonated with me. Like, we have to think about all of these things. Health is so personal and it's so sacred in so many ways that building that trust is so important. And it's honestly personally painful when you have people like Google tell us that 75% of consumers think that hospitals put profits before patients. We have a long way to go and a lot of work to do to show that that's really not true. I mean, all of the people that work for us, all of our providers absolutely care so much about every patient. That needs to come through in our content marketing as well.
So you led into kind of where are the opportunities. That when you said that, I probably thought to myself, yeah, I probably think, profits are more important than patients. So yeah, what are you doing to shift that?
It's not an easy shift to make. I think most content marketers are in a situation where a lot of content gets created because internal stakeholders ask for things or want to strategically push people to buy particular things. In healthcare, it's harder because we can't create demand, right? You're either sick or you're not. You have a particular diagnosis or you don't. But we have to take into account what information people want and how we can be there when they're seeking those most critical answers. The volume of searches that are related to health is significantly higher than most other industries. If you're not there, you're not part of the conversation. You're not part of their help and support. And so, internally, I've had to do a lot of convincing for people to understand that we're approaching content from the patient perspective, from the user perspective. What are they wanting? What are they needing? What are they searching for? And making sure that we are there. And that's a very different thing than running around and asking internally, what should we be talking about? What should we be writing about? Do you have any stories for us? And we bring the audience to the table every time.
That's great. So you must have a monster kind of content management system.
An evolving content management system, let's put it that way. So, I inherited a lot of what we have, but our Health Essentials blog and Consult QD blog are WordPress sites. Our main website is Sitecore. We've built some tools internally that we're using. And actually, we're kind of at a critical point with a lot of that and really reevaluating and assessing where we need to go to move forward, because there's no distinction to a user between those things. We're one Cleveland Clinic, it's one website to them, and we need to think about it that way, and we need to move our process forward to utilize newer technologies and new ways of doing things that help our users get the content they want anywhere, any way they come in to our site. So we are actively working on some changes to make that better, but some of it's growing pains, right? I mean, when we first started all of this, the blog was really small, and so putting it on WordPress was just this little thing that we were doing on the side, and now that's not really the case. And we want to be really, really focused on that user experience and how do we make sure that we're giving them everything we have to offer when they're coming for those very critical concerns.
How young do your users
It's really interesting. It's changed a lot over the years. When we were getting most of our traffic from social media, primarily Facebook, we were getting most of our traffic from women who were 65 and older.
Wow.
Today, that's not the case. Google and the Google obsessed user is quite younger. Our biggest age range is like 25 to 34, followed very closely by like 35 to 44. So it's much more of that millennial Gen X mom, again, who's caring for herself, her kids, her parents, her spouse, and a lot of the time. So, and again, she's busy, so she wants that answer right away. She's Googling every time she's got a question, right? And that's it. You give her what she wants on demand.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you looking at, like, where do your channels go in terms of youth? Are you looking at Snapchat, or we're not?
No, we're on Snapchat. We've been on Snapchat for several years. Okay. And we entered that platform with the mindset of like experimentation. Let's just see what we get. We do have quite a few followers. Mostly, it's the youngest demographic for sure of all of our platforms. But we take that into account in our content. So while, we write a lot of things that are relevant to that demographic, they don't go there, right? We don't put that stuff on Snapchat. Our most successful Snapchat story ever is with one of our chiropractors talking about text neck.
Oh!
You're always on your phone, perfect. Right? And it was really hyper relevant to them. We do a lot of fun things with filters and events and our sponsorships with Indians and the Cavs and things like that. And, the flu shot, we have a whole Snapchat campaign around that because our nurses really get involved in a lot of the flu shot activities. And so it was a way to kind of drive engagement. Nurses Week, things like that. We have a lot of our employees on Snapchat, interestingly. So we try to just make it fun. One of our rules around engaging with new channels is that it has to be authentic and feel like it belongs there. We can't force one strategy across them all. Really making sure we take into account those different audiences and the nuances of the platforms and the capabilities of the platforms. And one of my favorite stories over the last couple of years is the way we've evolved our Instagram presence. So early on, we did what everybody else did. We posted beautiful photos of our campus and patients and doctors and oh, yay. And
well, that's what people are searching for, right?
The funny part is it was like, it could have been any hospital anywhere. There was no distinction in the content really. And then we got verified and we realized we could drive traffic with it. So we started to take actual health essentials articles, existing health essentials articles, and create these really cool graphical stories and try to drive people to get more information. Or, if there were 5 tips in the article, we would give them 3 and here's, go for more. And we did it in a really fun way. We changed our sort of illustration style to really speak to that particular audience. And it's been hugely successful. We've exponentially grown traffic from Instagram. We have topics and content that we're creating based on those results that are really fun and engaging for that millennial audience in particular. But Instagram is definitely one of the only growing social media channels, so it was something we wanted to invest more into. So it's been really kind of interesting to just play. We do the quizzes, we do the, are you right? And we just embrace the capabilities of every platform.
Great, that's awesome. And are you very geo-specific?
No, because even though we're a hospital and most hospitals are local, we're a national healthcare brand, one of the very few, and we want to help people all over the world with our content and information, regardless if you choose our services. It's important for us to really just take care of people and offer information and answers to anyone.
It seems like there's so much of the content from the gut at your organization, from feeling, empathy, right? Yeah. How much is based in analytics?
Well, it's the combination of the two, right? So if we've got an idea or gut intuition about a topic, we'll go check the data, right? Or if it's something we see trending that we know we need to react to really quickly, then maybe not. But most of the time, it is really data driven. And even in some ways, not necessarily like Google Analytics data, but conversations with physicians. Are you getting this question from your patients a lot? That's where we typically like to start, because then it's easier for them to be explaining things once and have this document, have this article that they can then share too, and they're bought into the content in a different way. But no, we really try to understand search demand, engagement metrics. Is this topic, is this content worth it? What's the angle? Where should we go? Because there's endless amounts of ideas for content for us. And again, because we're trying to speak to really anybody in the world who could possibly ever get sick, which is everyone, we could go in a million directions. The prioritization comes from the numbers.
What kind of content or topics have you shut down? Like we just haven't seen, and it was a surprise to you, right?
There's nothing we've really shut down per se, but there's definitely niche things that we just don't really do as much anymore because the demand for the content's not there. If it's something that's really like no one answers the question for someone, we still want to do that, but we're just not going to do that as much. So, there's certain clinical things that we get asked about, and it's like, this might affect like 1 in 1.5 million people. Like, maybe not. But that's just the nature of the platform. And we might do it somewhere else or put it in the place where, people would really be looking for it. But we don't do everything. I think the just say no mindset is definitely important. You've got to stick to your strategy. You've got to know what your channels are all about and who the audiences are.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then how do you feed that up to senior staff? Like, do you ever get feedback like, we want to move in this direction and I feel it, I know it, but...
Yeah, especially early on when we were doing this, there was a lot of expectations that blog content and social is free, so you should just do whatever everybody wants. And the problem with that is we have a lot of different clinical departments and areas and programs, and everybody wants something. And so the more that we articulated the strategy and explained the data behind it, like, this is who is actually engaging with this content. This is actually the audience we're building. This is the strategy. This is where we're going. I did do a lot of road showing kind of things earlier. Now, a lot of people really do understand, especially like with Health Essentials, for example. Health Essentials is that national audience. It's a very small percentage of people who are in Cleveland going to make an appointment with us, right? So the need to like push those services or to talk about things that are very, very hyper local to our own patient population, the more I explain that 90% of the people seeing this stuff would never take that action, the more they start to understand it doesn't belong there. Mm-hmm. But it takes that repetitive education. It takes having kind of those canned responses and the ability to just explain and explain and explain until you're tired of explaining. But you just can't stop, and you do have to stick to the plan, stick to the strategy. Every time you get cave, it's diluting what you're really trying to do.
Yeah. Who's been your biggest advocate internally?
Our CMO, Paul Matson, is amazing. His support has been phenomenal. His understanding and investment in content has been critical to our success. His trust in me, we've changed things a lot. We've evolved our organization a lot, has been phenomenal. I can't say enough about it. And he's a CMO who really does understand and know what we're talking about. He's on social media. He's understanding content. He knows our numbers. And it's not from big comprehensive reports. It's just from daily interaction and understanding.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, great. Yeah, we all would love a boss like that. Okay, you retweeted this from one of your team members, and I love this. Yes, content campaigns are the devil. So our integrated marketing campaigns focus on selling to customers forever. I love that.
Yes. Joe Polizzi yesterday talked a lot about this, and I think it's really important. Content marketing is not a campaign. It's not a project. It's not a one-off. We like to talk about our content channels and process like products. You really need to invest in them. It's a long-term strategy, and it's something that you really have to think about how you build a long-term committed relationship with that user. It's not a one and done. It's not, there's never really an end to it. It's continuous and iterative, and it's imperative that people understand that content marketing isn't a fling. It's not a blip. It's not a, end and done and move on to the next. Again, we've talked a lot about optimizing existing content, reaching the right people with your content, being hyper relevant, making it amazing. That's the focus. That's how you have to think about it, because the start and ends and start and stops and buy-in for a campaign or trying to get, all these different people and departments, it slows you way down, and your audience sees through it, right? People are savvy and smart, and they know when something is meant to sell, and you really just have to be careful with that. Most content marketing programs are about relationships and trust building. Right. And every time you take a step or a stab at that, it dilutes, again, your results and your ability to be successful.
Yeah, right on. What do you think the drivers are for? Why is this happening?
Well, it's the way marketing has traditionally worked, right? Ad campaigns, PR campaigns. And it's always around a specific initiative or a budget. Right? It's like, we have this much money to spend in this amount of time. Okay, so that's campaign thinking, right? And that's not ongoing and iterative and optimizing. And it doesn't necessarily pay off in many of the channels that content marketers are responsible for.
Mm-hmm. And you would think that the data would support it. Like, yes, you get a high, but also what happens during the low versus the always on and the always, kind of moving up and to the right. So we agree with you. It's hopefully this trend will reverse. Yeah. Perfect. Great. I also love what you had said about people internally have no clue what you are doing. Never stop selling internally. Always, always, always.
Yeah, it's critical for us. We can't do anything without internal buy-in. We have to have a doctor or medical expert review every piece of content we publish. So they need to understand what it is we're trying to accomplish. Who are we reaching? And making sure we're circling back with them too once we've done something to let them know that it worked and it reached this many people and you affected this many patients. They don't understand it all, and we change things a lot. We add new channels, we add new platforms, right, where we're asking more and more from internal stakeholders. And if they don't know what you're doing or what you've been able to achieve with their time, right, they're less likely to continue to come back and support you. And even at the highest levels, I'm lucky to have a CMO who really does understand, but I still have to go and talk to our institute chairmen, talk to our other C-level executives and explain the strategy, explain what we're doing, explain why this matters.
So what would your vision be 3 to 5 years from now for content marketing?
I think it's really fun to look back and see kind of how far we've come and think a little bit about how far we could go. Right. I mean, I remember the days when we were talking about what is content marketing and trying to convince people that it was a good idea. And now everybody's doing it. But I think it's about refining it and understanding what doing it well really means. And a lot of what we've talked about today relative to sticking to a strategy and being really sophisticated and smart about how you spend your resources to continue to optimize your programs is really important. And I think over the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see more of that. I think this trend of more content will slow down. I think people will start to understand you can't be everywhere doing all the things extremely well. How do you connect with your audience? How do you take what you're hearing in these trends and buzzwords and all this and make sure that you're doing the things that really connect you, your brand, with your customers, and making sure you're on the platforms where your audiences really are engaging with you?
Yeah. Speaking of buzzwords, are you looking at machine learning, preparing for that?
I think it's really funny with machine learning, AI, all of that. Most of it happens naturally, right? It's just the evolution of the way technology works and how you implement the right set of tools with what you're doing. I'm lucky to have a really great technology side of our division as well, and Matt Bakaitis, who runs that, and I sit right next to each other, and there's constant back and forth of what if we did this? What if we try this? What tools are out there? Who can help us do that? And just continuing to have those kinds of conversations is important. Again, healthcare is challenging. There's a lot of regulation and HIPAA rules and things we have to worry about. So I think for us, it tends to be a little bit slower just because of that. But no, it's here. It's not coming. It's here.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so know the data now,
Right.
No matter how it'll be served to you. Fantastic. Okay, let's see. How can people find you?
Oh, well, I'm everywhere, and it's not a very common name. Mostly, I would say Twitter, Amanda Toto. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere.
Amanda Toto.
Yeah, Amanda Toto.
That's fantastic. Okay, great, good. Right from the gut, from the brain. I love the way kind of you're building your team and moving forward with this, kind of big. It's not even a dream. It's like you said. It's today internally. You're really leading the way for all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, parting thoughts. Content marketers, how can they break free?
Break free. I love that phrase. It's something actually we talk a lot about in my team because I think that too many content marketing teams are becoming everything content, right? So trying to serve all the masters of the entire organization for all things creative, you start to do things that truly aren't content marketing, right? Not all content is content marketing. And so really, I think refining and defining what your roles are and what you should be focused on and finding ways to carve out those other things to other people and really breaking free from that burden of the order taking of the content that still needs to happen, but shouldn't happen from you. We've focused a lot on that, and it's life changing.
Yeah.
You got to give up some stuff. You can't hold on to every written word that ever comes out of your organization because it's just really not effective, and you resent those kinds of projects, which means the results are not as strong. So identifying those strengths, those weaknesses, where resources need to be reallocated or shifted around, and not to be afraid of it, right? Don't embrace the change and know that it's going to happen. The evolution of content marketing departments is just beginning.
Oh, absolutely. So what content would you say, no, my team
So one of the biggest things for us is a lot of collateral, event openings, signage, right? That's not us. That's not what we're really good at. And so, the stuff that's more, I like to say, ordered up from other people or sales enablement kinds of things that are really selling the services or really talking about programs. that's not what content marketing really is at its core. And so, again, if you're trying to do all of those things, it's probably all pretty mediocre.
Okay, no, excellent point. Yeah, and I bet a lot of departments do try to do it.
Yeah, and we were one of them. I mean,
Yeah.
that was what we were doing. And it was burning people out too. It's frustrating when you're trying to like be strategic content marketers and represent your audience and bring all of that data to the table at the same time. You've got all these people asking for all of this stuff that still needs to get done, but it's not the same type of work. And, you know, a lot of times the writers for content marketing departments are former journalists. They don't want to write sales collateral and they're probably not very good at it, right? So how do you make sure that you're structured in a way that supports all of the needs, but distinctly gives people focus?
No, that's great. Yeah, I remember back in the day, user guides were coming my way. And I was very proud to have made, and yet I was conflicted. I had to make that division because I wanted to help, but that just would have taken my team all day. We would have been the user guide group.
Right.
Okay, great. This is fantastic. You're brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much.
I love this. Well, thank you very much. And
Absolutely.
we'd love to have you again on another Break Free.
Thank you.